Police came under attack in Belfast and Plymouth last night again after a week of unrest across the UK, which has seen rioters attack mosques and hotels housing asylum seekers.
Around 400 people have been arrested and the Home Secretary says courts are on standby to ensure swift justice. We're joined now by the Courts Minister Heidi Alexander. Good to speak to you and have you with us this morning. Good to know the courts are on standby, but where are those found convicted going to go? We know prisons are under huge pressure. Some 500 extra places have been created in the short term, but there's concern, isn't there, that there's still going to be measures in September to have to release prisoners early. So what kind of sentences will they get? How long will they realistically be able to be contained? And will it be comparable to some of the climate activist sentences that we've seen, which is at least 4 years?
Good morning, Kate. Lots of questions there.
Sorry, there was. You're right. Apologies.
So, look, I think the decisions about sentencing when these cases come to the courts will be for judges. But anyone watching our television screens and seeing the images that you and I have seen of this violent disorder, the racist attacks, the dangerous extremism, will realise that in all likelihood there's some very serious offences that have been committed. It will be for the Crown Prosecution Service to determine what charges are brought against individuals. Evidence will need to be collated so that there are strong cases going before the courts. And then, of course, as I say, it will be judges to determine those sentences. But you know, whether it's rioting, violent disorder, incitement to racial hatred, criminal damage, these carry very significant maximum sentences. You ask a question about the prison estate as well.
Just roughly to give us an idea, sorry, because I know I asked you a lot of questions, but just on that sentencing bit, what sort of, you say, significant maximum sentences? What are we talking about?
There's 10 years, 7 years, 5 years for some of the offences that I've just spoken about. But it will be for the judges to hand down those sentences and decide what is appropriate given the offence that has been committed. You also asked a question at the beginning about prison places, and you rightly noted the fact that what we have been able to do is bring forward 567 additional prison places so that anyone who has got involved in this violent disorder or is thinking about it can be assured that if they get a custodial sentence, there is going to be a prison place for them. We will be opening a new house block at Stocken Prison in Rutland next week. We have also repurposed some space in a youth offenders institute in Kent called Cookham Wood. And so there will be prison places available because the people that have been involved in this disgusting and vile behaviour do need to feel the full force of the law upon them. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, has been very clear about that. Not only do we need the robust police response that we have seen on the streets and in our communities over the last few days, but we also need swift justice to act as a deterrent and to act as appropriate punishment for these crimes that have been committed.
As you said, the decisions on sentencing are for the judges, independent of ministers, but you're in charge of resources and making sure that the money is there. And we know that the prisons are full. We know that there is huge backlogs in the Crown courts and in the magistrate courts, and very hard to move those cases through. And we now know that your department, the Justice Department, is going to face extra spending cuts this year because of Rachel Reeves' statement to pay for public sector pay rises. And we know that you're an unprotected department. So at the moment on current plans, you've got actual real-term cuts coming in your budget next year. Is it possible for you credibly to say the criminal justice system can sort this out, put people in prison, get them through the courts, deal with all those backlogs, and at the same time have absolute real terms cuts in your budgets this year and next year?
So, Ed, you're entirely right that we face a very difficult situation with regard to the public finances. You will know how it works. There will be vigorous negotiations between the Ministry of Justice and the Treasury when it comes to the next spending review. I think we've got a Prime Minister in Keir Starmer for whom the criminal justice system runs in his veins, and upholding the rule of law in this country is critical and so vitally important to him and indeed to his government. And so I think these exceptional circumstances that we faced with this violent disorder on the streets, we do need individuals to face consequences for their actions when they choose to pick up a brick and throw it at a police officer, when they choose to set alight to a building or loot shops. They are choosing to commit a criminal offence at that stage. And so all parts of the criminal justice system need to stand ready, and I'm confident that they are standing ready, whether that's the magistrates' courts, the Crown courts, the prisons, the probation service. And I would just like to thank not only the police officers who have been putting themselves on the front line to deal with this disorder, but all the staff that are working across the criminal justice system, because this is a very challenging time for us all.
It is. And you mentioned the police service. Of course, that's the other part of the resourcing question, isn't it? We've heard that there will be a standing army to ensure that not just punishment for those involved, but also stopping the problem when it's happening. What does a standing army mean in reality? How will that actually work, especially with numbers so tight in the police?
Yeah, so 4,000 specialist police officers who are trained in dealing with public order were made available this weekend. There are another 2,000 officers that are available this week, and that they can be deployed to the areas that need them most. You will have also heard the Prime Minister last week, just days after the tragic murder of those beautiful girls in Southport, set up the violent disorder programme to enable better intelligence sharing between the police forces, enhanced use of facial recognition technology. And so we are doing absolutely everything we can to ensure that there is a robust police response. But that also means that we need to have a swift justice system also in place and appropriately resourced in order to be able to get those cases through the courts and then get people into prison. One of the things that hasn't been invoked at the moment but might be invoked is the additional court protocol. That will be for the chief police officer in any given area, along with the chief prosecutor, to apply to the judiciary to ask for the magistrates' courts to sit for longer during the day, perhaps to sit overnight into weekends. This happened in 2011 when we had the riots there. Right. Whilst we haven't seen the same level of cases coming through into the magistrates' court as yet, because all of the cases are being dealt with in the normal sitting hours at the moment, the judiciary indicated yesterday that they would consider those applications if they do come forward on a regional basis. And I think we're all on the same page in wanting to see swift and effective justice delivered.
It's very clear from what you say. Look, nobody can ask you to negotiate with the Treasury on this programme, but when you say that the criminal justice system needs to be appropriately resourced, it's not appropriately resourced at the moment. It can't deal with spending cuts this year and next year. And the truth is, unless there's more money going into the court system, the judicial system quickly, you aren't going to be able to deliver what you are promising. But I think you've put your marker down to the Treasury today, and let's hope they're listening.
Thanks. And, I think there are other things that you can do in order to deal with the backlog in the criminal courts, and we'll be looking at a whole range of options, some of which won't require additional financial resources, but that's something we will be working through with the judiciary and other stakeholders.
Heidi Alexander, we wish you well with that task, because we're all very disturbed at what we're seeing. So good to speak to you this morning.
Thanks for your time.